Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us another episode of SPINcast here. I'm here with Lumen Vera, and he is the director at Loyola University in New Orleans. I'll hand it off to him, let him introduce himself, and then we'll get started.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lumen Vera. I am the head esports coach for Loyola University, New Orleans. We here at I represent a university that has a varsity athletics. Our program is through the athletics team. We are based out of New Orleans, basically in the heart of New Orleans. And currently, our program is brand new. We started it last semester, or actually, sorry, this semester. I started last year. So this is all fairly new as far as the program itself, but I've been in esports for 2 decades now.
Wow.
Yeah, I started off as a player and then moved along to manager, captain manager, and then organization owner, which is then how I moved here.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of experience, and good to see you guys kind of starting the program there. So you
Yeah.
kind of went into it a little bit, but so you guys are a varsity program. You're not kind of under the club level.
Correct. We are a varsity program. There was a club that was part of Loyola, but it's since disbanded, and basically part of that got swallowed up into the athletics program. But overall, yes, it is a varsity program.
Awesome. So like I said, newer program. So do you guys currently have like teams and players, or by starting okay, so like how many players slash kind of teams do you currently have?
So we currently have, I believe, a total of 19 players. Not every team is full. We have a full Overwatch team, Overwatch 2 team with a couple of subs. We have a full League team with a couple of subs. We have a full Super Smash Bros. Roster, and we have one Call of Duty player, but we're currently building that for when Modern Warfare 2 comes out.
Gotcha. Cool. And what games like overall are you recruiting for? Is it kind of all those? Any others off of that as well?
Yeah, so from my experience, I want to get into games that have a competitive league, not only in collegiate, but also in the pro scene. I don't want to go into games. I'll put it this way: like games like battle royales are iffy in my eyes, just because there's not a consistent, there's not a consistent circuit as there is for like Call of Duty, as there is for League, as there is for Overwatch, even for Smash. I want the students to be able to compete in games that where when they graduate or even while they're in college, they can move on to the pro scene if they so choose to.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely not a bad route to take for sure.
Yeah. So we do look for Rocket League, Rainbow Six, Halo, Call of Duty. We have a large list of games. At that point, it's just a matter of how many games can I personally handle.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess in your eyes, what kind of do you look at as like kind of being like titles you want to compete in, like as a program?
I for sure want to. So I grew up on CS:GO or Counter-Strike. 1.5 moved to 1.6, then sourced in CS:GO. So Counter-Strike for sure. I want to get into Valorant for sure. I want to get into Rocket League is huge. So for sure, Rocket League. We're already in Overwatch. We're getting into that. Rainbow Six. Basically, any and all major competitive esports is really what I would want to get into, because it's exciting to see everything on the big stage. They have the collegiate scene, which right now it doesn't fully do it, but I'm hoping that esports in general eventually builds a ladder, kind of like how there is college football leading into the NFL. I would love for collegiate esports to lead into pro scenes.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen it a little bit already, and you assume over time it'll keep growing. So
Right, exactly.
that's definitely a good mentality to have there. Do you guys offer esports specific scholarships?
Yes.
Yep.
So we offer them through our athletic department. So usually they run, on average, they're between 20,000 to 30,000. The tuition itself is alone 45,000. So it covers a substantial amount, depending on a couple of things. One is grades. We seek a 3.0 GPA minimum. And even if it dips, I'd say for me, like, look, life gets in the way. It's just a conversation of like, hey, what happened?
Sure.
But if a student is still like, hey, yeah, I dipped to like a 2.9, 2.8 or whatever, but I can get it back up, and they do, then no harm, no foul. That's just something happens. The other big thing that we look for is a mentality of sorts. So, in esports as a player, especially growing up, it's not like Little League. There isn't a ladder that you follow from, kindergarten, first grade, elementary to middle school to high school to college and then forward. Within esports, because it's very much like the Wild West and it's not as structured at the moment.
Yep.
You have to do everything yourself. You have to have that proactive mentality of, okay, if I really want to get good at this game, I need to step up. I need to be the one building content. I need to be the one understanding social media. I need to be the one building a team, trying to figure that out. So, it is the path that I ended up taking, which is why I'm here. So that's a huge thing myself, is that proactive mentality. And sometimes some students don't necessarily have it yet, and that's fine. It's just a matter of pulling it out of them, because that's a huge thing. As far as mechanical skill, I will say learning from this semester, initially there wasn't a rank minimum, but I think seeing it now, there needs to be. So just to give an example, like League is most likely going to be like a Plat 1, Diamond 4, Diamond 3, I think they start. High Plat, low Diamond minimum for us. And that's just because, again, you have a semester to get these students together as a team, and team cohesion is just a huge thing. We've all been there, where even for students who are like, who've never been on a competitive team, they've been in a group project. You've always had that one student that's like, why are you here? So I want to avoid that in the future, so that the team can just start together and kind of get an already understanding and trust each other's skill sets.
That makes sense. And also, if like the majority of your team, let's say, is diamond level, it's just really difficult to bring in like a silver player. It's just not fair to either the team or the low rank player, whatever the case may be.
Right.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, no, exactly. And again, that kind of comes down to lower ranks. Lower rank, it doesn't cut out lower rank individuals, but what it does tell them, and this is what I would say to students, that it means that you do need to now put in the extra hours and the extra effort to get to that rank, so that one, the team that you're going on trusts you. A student over the summer, I think he was gold in League of Legends, because he's on our roster now, and he got himself to diamond.
Wow.
And that was just because he was thinking, well, if I'm going to be competitive and I'm going to be in a team, I need to be at this level, and he just did it himself.
Well, and it's also one of those things probably too, where, it's coming to play in college is not just loading up rank to play with your friends on a Saturday night. And that's what it sounds like you're creating. It's like, hey, you're coming to play on a team where obviously you're gonna have players that trust you. We're playing in, CLO or whatever competitive leagues are out there where, we're playing against really good players. This isn't just your Sunday night hangout with, your friends down the street or whatever.
Yeah, and I'd say that's the kind of the big thing that a lot of students, and overall a lot of people have a misconception about just in esports, the whole thing of like, oh, it's video games. And what I've recognized, even for students that are interested in esports, when the idea of, because the schedule that we have for us is a 15-hour a week schedule. Half of that is dedicated to scheduled scrims. The other half is you doing stuff on your own time. Like, you do get homework to be like, okay, you're going to work on this drill, you're going to work on aim, you're going to work on this, you're going to work with a duo. You have to build this. And then I do one-on-ones with the students to talk to them, to kind of build that competitive mentality and help them break out of that, the pressure, because a lot of these students have never experienced it.
Sure. So it's almost like a part-time job in a sense. You're coming in, right?
Yeah, of course.
So
it encompasses so much, but even the students that are coming in, like I've talked to some of them are on the roster now, and they've changed their mind entirely. But initially they came in, they're like, oh yeah, I get to be here and play games, and then they realized, wait, this is actually serious. Like, you can't. Okay, yeah, and that's the big thing. It's even to the students who are esports enthusiasts, they don't realize how serious this is. Unless you're in the trenches yourself, unless you're the one competing, unless you're the one putting in that effort, outside of that, nobody knows what you really do.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, that's a great point to make, for sure. Off of that, because I know you kind of dove into that in terms of like traits and skills that you look for in a recruit. Are there any other specific ones that you want to hit on?
I'd say honestly, so skill set, there's a rank minimum, so that's it. But I'd say honestly, genuinely, the biggest one is a proactive mindset. Um, it's just a huge thing to be able to have someone on your team that's willing to, if they don't know something, willing to communicate, be like, hey, I don't know this. Can I, hey coach, can I set up time with you to learn this? Because I really want to get to know this. I have a student on my Overwatch roster who basically brand new to the game. Like he's played a little bit, and I've talked to him a couple times, but I see him in our esports room in our facility, and he's just playing tanks. He's watching videos, and he asks me questions, and I'm
Mhm.
like, cool, dude. You're taking a whole other route that I don't have to hold your hand. You are doing this yourself. You are
Yep.
definitely taking up the initiative. You're doing this yourself, and it's gonna, those are the individuals that are much easier to work with because they want it themselves. So they're gonna do it for themselves. They're not doing it for anybody else. So that's an ideal candidate. The Probably the big thing that is ideal is always having someone who knows time management pretty well. But I'll even admit, like, I'm not the best at it. Prefer my like personal and organization stuff. But it's something that like it's a huge thing. But proactivity is that it's super super key. It's dire, I think, for you to survive in this industry.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
No, I mean, yeah, it's definitely big for sure. Do you guys host event? I know it's a newer program, so do you plan on hosting like any events, camps, or anything like that?
Yeah, I that's the plan in the future. I know we're currently hosting game nights. We have a costume contest coming later on in the month. We're trying to so I'm wanting to just to kind of hit on this a little bit. The short
Yeah.
answer is yes, because when I was working in Crescent Esports in the organization that I made, we had a mix of competitive and community stuff going on. So, you have your competitive teams that you support and talk about and post on social media and show everybody. And then you have the community events where you're like, hey, you build that fans, you build the new people coming in of introducing them to esports, introducing them to your teams. So that's kind of how we're building it, how I'm building it here.
Mhm.
As far as more competitive events, yes, that is the goal down the line. Once we have all our, because finally our matches started to compete. We're in the NACE Star League. So
Mhm. Yep.
they just started for Overwatch 2 and League of Legends, and so once we have a comfortable schedule of that, that's when I'm going to start adding more and more events. And I do want to host offline. We do have a smaller, well, it's like a medium-sized space, I'd say. It's a,
Mhm.
it's a the room is 20 PCs and two switches. So it's not humongous, and the room itself is like a 33 by 33. So it's not huge, but it definitely can hold a good amount of people.
Gotcha. No, it makes sense. Definitely, like getting the program kind of fully running first, and then kind of adding to it for sure.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any students either that you're kind of looking to almost like recruit per se, or that currently help the program in non-player roles?
Yes. So outside of the competition, within here, we already have a work study roles, mainly social media management, team management, and then community management or event essentially. And they do all those roles. They take over. I let the students run the social media. I'm there to give them advice and kind of say, hey, word it this way, do it this way.
Yeah.
Um, but I let them do that. Like it's their thing. Um, because a lot of them is what they're going to school for. Like Loyola is really big on arts, so there are a
Mhm.
lot of film students, there are a lot of graphic designers, even and a lot of musicians and such. So they love using their skill set, and they get to use it here, and they all are enjoying it. You know, they're the ones that they come to me and be like, "Hey, can we run this event?" And it's gotten to a point now. I'm like, "You just tell me what you want to do. You just write it down. Give me a proposal, and I'll read it and I'll be like, cool, let's do this. Let's change this, do this." So I do my best to let them, I try to give them as much autonomy as possible, which is sometimes for better or the worse. For better, it's better, and sometimes it's for the worse.
Gotcha.
Depending.
Well, it's the thing, kind of not learning on the fly, but
Yeah.
in a sense, kind of being able to learn from your mistakes in the with real experience. Um,
Yeah.
so you mentioned you guys have a space. What does kind of like your facility or space look like?
So our space itself is we used to be these two like storage rooms. For anybody who ends up looking at Loyola University New Orleans, down in the Dana Center, we're in the basement where gamers belong, across the across the way from the lounge that we have for students. Our space itself, again, is a basically a square space. It's like 30 by 33, so it's not.
Hmm.
It's a decent size. Along the walls, we have all 20 PCs. Um, and then kind of in the middle, we have an area that's a lounging area for people to hang out, eat, read, do homework, whatever they need to do. And then we all have off to the side an area for Nintendo Switch, because Smash Brothers is a huge thing for Loyola. Has always been
Gotcha.
a huge thing.
Awesome. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges you face with your program?
Oof. Oh man. This is so it's a startup. And because that's a startup, I'd say the biggest challenge is one, it's organizing everything. It's getting everybody together on the same page, making sure everyone has their schedules together and are talking to each other and communicating. It's the biggest challenge is getting the pipeline, the protocols, like it's building the infrastructure. That's it once that's built, everything becomes much more smooth sailing, because then it's like, okay, this is how we do social media, this is how we do Teams, this is how we do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say for me, that's like been the biggest challenge. That's been the most things that I've had the most hurdles with students, where, and luckily I have students who do communicate with me, who say like, hey coach, this isn't working for me, or this is not a good idea, or we need this from you.
Mm-hmm.
So with their help, that challenge is so far becoming less and less of an issue.
Gotcha. Awesome to hear.
Yeah.
And that's just a concern too. I've kind of heard overall with any like newer program too, because you guys
Right.
kind of lay the groundwork for it.
Exactly.
What would you say? And again, I know newer programs, so not necessarily maybe a ton of these yet, but what kind of your most proud moment or biggest achievement that's happening within your program?
Um, I don't know if I'd consider this an achievement on my own, but the thing that makes me the most proud is the fact of how the students actually have taken to the program. The players, the people who work in the non-player roles, they take it seriously, and
Mhm.
a lot of them have been making sure like they take it upon themselves to make sure it's running smoothly. That sometimes they come at me to be like, hey coach, you said you were going to do this and didn't do it. So
Mhm.
I'd say for me, I don't know how much of that is me. That was me setting up those expectations and that level of organization, but it's seeing the pride that the students have and the seriousness that they have and how they work into it really well together. Um, it is nice to be like, cool, yes, I started this, but wow, these students really took it, and
Yeah,
they are doing the best that they can, and they're working together with it.
that's awesome. I mean, and like you mentioned kind of earlier on too, I mean, it probably comes from you in terms of your mindset that you came in with, but then
Mhm.
obviously it's also up to them to actually
Take
do
them on.
kind of
Yeah.
do what you say. So that's really cool to hear, and that's huge for kind of laying the groundwork as well. When you have right off the bat serious players, new players come in, they see how serious it is, and it just builds off that. Um, if you could give one piece of advice to any recruit slash student player watching this, what would it be?
Oof. Time management, organization, and cohesion are probably the three biggest things that you need to make sure are on in the program. So the time management, meaning having an understanding not only of how much time it's going to take you to do something yourself, uh, but setting up the schedules, organizing the schedules, organizing how many hours even the non-player roles should be fulfilling, how many hours the players should be practicing, how many hours you're going to be spending on this. Because if you're doing a startup like I am, it can be overwhelming. There's a lot that needs to happen.
Mm,
So having, and then lastly, it's the cohesion. Again, going back to the analogy of you have a school project and then you maybe have one or two students that you're working with who are like not doing anything, even in business, if you have people who you're working with who aren't pulling their weight, it breaks the team apart, and it's a struggle to really keep it together. So cohesion is such a huge thing. Make sure that the teams, for players, you will be part of a team. Understand that your individual skill is pale in comparison to the cohesion of the team. Once you enter a team, the team becomes bigger than you. And you need to, and for recruits, they need to understand that. It doesn't mean that they don't have their own individual skill. It doesn't mean that they lose their autonomy, but for them to appropriately be on a team and work together, whatever individual issues they have, they need to be able to process them and work on them so that the team can survive. As far as the coach, kind of the same thing. When you're bringing in the students, get a good idea of their attitude. Try to see if, one, like the way I do it, because I've been with so many different teams, is I ask myself the question, would I play with this person? And if to me, I'm like, I don't think I feel comfortable with this, that's kind of a first sign of, okay, this might be an issue. I would say maybe for those who don't have experience on a team, kind of think back to any group projects of you ran into. What were issues that you had with people who weren't working, who weren't pulling their weight? What did you look for, or what was helpful to the students that you, or the other projects that were helpful, that the teammates that you did have? We have all had experiences through it, and that's just a huge thing for me. And I'd say that helps bring a program together. Keeping the wrong people in a program will break it apart from the inside out.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. So thank you there, Lumen. If you want to just like kind of plug any socials or where people can kind of go to learn more about your program, feel free.
Sure. Loyno, Loyno, Esports, Esports. That is on all social medias, even our Discord. The Discord is a community of students, high school students, professionals that I've met in the industry who I'm connecting with the students so that they can build their network. And also other staff members from the university are in that Discord. That is a place for students. Anyone interested in understanding collegiate esports can come in and network. We have Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. They're working on everything, but Loyno Esports is the overall tag for everything.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, and we'll see you another time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good one.